When SpongeBob wants to give Patrick the best birthday gift ever, he goes to his heroes, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, for an autograph, only to be told to find some sea nut butter?
Sea nut butter, tomatoes, jelly.
Okay, in order to get that autograph for his best friend Patrick, SpongeBob will need to trek through Bikini Bottom, the under regions of the sea, Rock Bottom, and even travel through time to become the Super Sponge and save his best friend's birthday, as well as fix Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy's TV.
Look, kid, Eminem has had a turn, the TV is broken, and unless you get the right tools, he's gonna miss his favorite cartoon.
This is the miraculous adventures of Spongebob Supersponge, the first SpongeBob game for home consoles. Tune in or tune out.
Welcome to the Fantasy Zone.
Get ready.
You're tuning in to the J-Blast Network. Welcome to the next level.
Let's get scratching.
It's time to bring it around town, SpongeBob. The yellow square dude is at it again. You can join SpongeBob and all his friends from Bikini Bottom for a soaking wet good time. Available on Game Boy Advance, PC, and the PlayStation game console. Rated everyone.
I believe that SpongeBob is our Simpsons, or wait, is that Family Guy? Well, at least for kids my age, SpongeBob was born with us and continues to age with us, literally in my case being a 99 baby. But back when SpongeBob started, it was a smash hit, instantly becoming one of Nick's top shows. I think it was because after so long, Nick finally had a cartoon. Now what do I mean by that? Well, in the late 90s, a lot of the more abstract cartoons on Nick had ended. Ren and Stimpy, Our Real Monsters, and Rocko Modern Life all concluded or got canceled, leaving shows that were more relatable or more realistic like Hey Arnold, Rugrats, and The Wild Thornberrys take the spotlight. Okay, Cat Dog and Angry Beavers are probably the exception, but they weren't as popular as the others. Shoot, the biggest cartoon they had at the time was Rugrats. You know, the show about babies. It even got a movie, 3 movies in fact. Those type of shows were limited by their settings, but that was kind of the point. SpongeBob, because of its nature, wasn't, and it was also focused on being funny. It could have action episodes, comedic episodes, and much more, which was perfect for making a video game to go along with it. Now, to put it into perspective, Rugrats didn't receive a single video game until 1998 when the first movie came out, despite the show running since 1991, being one of the first of 3 Nicktoons. Meanwhile, more abstract shows like Ren and Stimpy would receive games quick, though to varying quality. Rugrats and similar types did not receive a game for a while. SpongeBob, on the other hand, received games fast. Like, they were developing these things back in 2000, less than a year after the show aired. In fact, SpongeBob would appear in Nicktoons Racing, the arcade game that would also be ported to the PS1 and the Game Boy Color, which is a Nickelodeon crossover racing game. But back then, in the year 2000, they would start developing a solo SpongeBob game. 2 solo SpongeBob games to be in fact. And of course, THQ, the publisher behind most of your favorite cartoon games back then, took the helm and assigned the game studio Climax to work on the first games. Well, actually, Vicarious Visions would release the first SpongeBob game on the Game Boy Color, The Lost Spatula, early in 2001. But the game we're talking about today is SpongeBob Supersponge. Originally started out as a 2.5D platformer with 3D graphics on the characters and stages to nightmarish results. It eventually adopted the 2.5D style altogether with sprite work for the characters and the 3D backgrounds remaining, which to me made it look a lot better for the PS1, because if you couldn't get 3D right the first time, you might as well switch to 2D. Another fun fact about Climax's development on this game is that they decided to draw climactic pictures of SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy that are just too epic of a conclusion to show on this channel. Now we know where to get their name from.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Anyway, Super Sponge would be the first console SpongeBob game releasing on the PS1, and a port was made to the Game Boy Advance. Both versions releasing in 2001, alongside Lost Spatula, which only beat them by an earlier release date. Now, as the first console SpongeBob game, you may think it was stupid to release it so late, but you gotta understand, not only was the PS2 backwards compatible, but the PS1 still had a large install base, and honestly, it took until around 2002, and I would say late 2002, you might add, for the PS2 to get some of its most iconic games. I guess what I'm trying to say is, as someone who lived during that time, we were still playing PS1. But enough of that. The real question for today's video is, for the start of SpongeBob games, did the Sponge get a good game? Hi, I'm Jay, and you're tuning into the J Blast Network, as we take a blast to the past to see the cartoon games that hopefully kick barnacle butt with Spongebob Supersponge.
Here we are at Bikini Bottom, and today we will be following my favorite creature, SpongeBob SquarePants, on his adventures around Bikini Bottom. Today, he is in search of the best birthday present ever for his best friend, Patrick. The question is, how far will he go for his best friend?
SuperSponge starts us out as SpongeBob trying to get Patrick a good gift for his birthday. That gift being an autograph from Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. There's only one issue. These old geezers don't want to do it. So they send him on a random fetch quest across the sea to get items for them, hoping he doesn't come back. And man, these guys go through some ridiculous lengths to do this. We'll go into more detail about that later. But what about the gameplay? As I said earlier, SuperSponge is a 2D platform with a mix of elements of the classics. SpongeBob can ground pound enemies like Mario. There are spatulas to collect, which act like your health, like the rings from Sonic the Hedgehog, except they are fixed to 100 per stage and only 100 per stage. There are also items on the map that SpongeBob can use, like a jellyfish net, usually giving you an attack or tool to traverse the level. That's kind of similar to the powers you get in Mega Man, right? Okay, maybe I'm stretching more than Luffy there, but you kind of see the vision, don't you? The main problem with some of these items is that a lot of them feel very broken. Look at this jellyfish net, for instance. Around the level there'll be jellyfish to catch, and they don't damage you. You can then throw them at enemies. However, what in the scallop was that? Who programs a projectile like that? Okay, honestly, in the context of the show, that's really funny, but this isn't just some joke. This is supposed to be a weapon. And even like this, there are some utilizations that the net is good for, like the grounded enemies. But Lord, using this on anything taller or flying is worse than a robotic nightmare. Lord help us all. Combat is not this game's strong suit. But what about the level design? Honestly, this is one of the game's strengths for what it is. So the structure of the game is very similar to the classics like Mario. 4 levels per world, with one having a boss fight. And in every world, each level is different with its own set of gimmicks. In the first world, Bikini Bottom, you go through Jellyfish's Fields, Sandy's Tree Dome, which doesn't really have any enemies, but has you entering pools of water to keep your water levels up, reminiscent of the show where they couldn't breathe in the tree dome because they needed water. And you have the fish hooks level where you can hop on the fish hooks before they catch you. And finally, you go through downtown Bikini Bottom and fight the King Jellyfish. And even if it's a level that looks similar, it has something in the background to separate it from the others. Fish Hook starts out looking like Jellyfish Fields, but as you get closer to the city, the background changes from the fields to the coral reefs that surround the town. And this is nothing groundbreaking for a platformer, but it's just interesting seeing them put this much effort into a late release licensed game like this. They could have just copy and pasted the backgrounds. Now that's something that I can respect. But what about the boss fights? If you want to know the quality, just know the first one gives you the jellyfish net to beat it. That's all I gotta say. Yeah, these aren't great. In fact, it's hard to tell if boss was damaged outside of them shrinking and noticing the health bar go down slightly. I mean, there isn't any impact felt with hitting them, so it's like these attacks just feel so awkward to use. And the King Jellyfish just loves to fly around fast. The shrinking actually makes the fight harder when trying to hit him, even though you can also jump on him. It's just an awkward feeling all around when you're forced into combat scenario like this. But beating him takes you back to Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, but now they want something else.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. Oh!
Back already? That is definitely a sandwich fit for a superhero.
I'm on my way.
This is the formula, folks. We're in it for the long run. Ready to get down? Because we're going down to the depths of the Bikini Bottom. This journey that SpongeBob goes on takes us to the center of the earth. Huh? Yes, bro. We're going that far to get some crap for these super geezers. You got these different types of carnivorous caverns, some strange layers of the sea, and freaking HFIL at a certain point. For those uninformed people, HFIL is the Hall of Infinite Losers. Unfortunately, we can't use the other name in a video like this. You have to understand, I do it for the kids. This is also where we get more items to use and see more characters randomly appearing in areas like Mr. Krabs, Sandy, and Patrick. Hey dude, we're trying to get stuff for you. Why are you out here? Even Gary makes an appearance here as an optional quest to get him food at the center of the earth. You know what? I'm not gonna question no more. Squidward also makes some appearances, especially in the beginning, but he just likes being, well, Squidward. And Mr. Krabs.
SpongeBob! Now listen, boy! I'm counting on you to use this here coral blower to make your way around Bikini Bottom.
Definitely doesn't sound like Mr. Krabs. So Clancy Brown was a renowned actor by this point, as well as a voice actor. And so he was very expensive for a game like this, and they just didn't bring him in. And this happened for a while, a long time. It wasn't until recently, I don't think, that Clancy Brown actually started appearing in games, because they gave him the budget to do so. The problem is, usually the actors that are chosen to replace him do a terrible job. And I think they only did it because they thought kids would just not notice it. But even as a kid, I definitely noticed that was not Mr. Krabs. Anyway, one of the items you'll receive here is the reef blower, and I think they did a pretty good job with this item, and by that I mean a pretty good job as making you simulate the rage Squidward felt seeing this being used by SpongeBob, because good lord, this is terrible. It makes you slower, heavier, and more slippery. What kind of combination is that? And on top of all this, the only advantage you have, which is supposed to be sucking things up and shooting them out, is only reduced to sucking these small shells that sit in midair like some debugged item waiting to be moved, and you can only do this one at a time to destroy walls. You are pretty much a sitting clam when wearing this thing. It's the worst item in the game when it should be the most powerful. I mean, this thing sucked up the whole sea in one of the episodes. Thankfully, the final items are way more useful. Here in, well, Bikini Bottom's HFIL, you also receive the Glub Balloon, which allows you to float in midair when jumping, the Bubble Wand, which allows you to blow bubbles to create small platforms, and at the boss of this stage, the Jellyfish Launcher, which works exactly how the jellyfish net should have worked by actually shooting a projectile out straight like a projectile. I'll get on the rest of the bosses in another section, but once you get all the items out of HFIL, you go back to the glorified geezers, and then they tell you, well, let me just let them tell you.
How about you pop back to prehistoric Bikini Bottom? You can find.
Prehistoric Bikini Bottom? For uniforms? Look, I know they're trying to kill him, dog, but you couldn't come up with a better item to get than that, or a better location? What's crazy is, SpongeBob finds a way to go back into the past too, with Plankton's time machine. He didn't make this in the show. You know what? It doesn't matter. A lot of this stuff in this game doesn't pull from the show at all. Now, this definitely looks like an older Bikini Bottom, with the faded colors and green goo and the rusted and ancient look, especially in the caves. It's here that we get the squeaky boots.
Stop it! Don't you hear it? Yes, I did it! I did it! I took the boots!
Calm down, Mr. Krabs. You are the one giving it to us after all. These allow you to run over spikes and hazards for a bit without taking any damage. And you'll also get the Karate Chop Glove from Sandy, which honestly should have been a permanent unlock here, or a part of SpongeBob's moveset by default, because he doesn't have a normal forward hidden attack, and SpongeBob can't just jump on enemies without ground pounding to hurt them. And on this subject, how did these guys show up to the past anyway? I mean, I appreciate the help, but did Plankton just out of his own goodwill of his heart let them come here to help old SpongeBob? That's oddly nice of him. Or maybe he sent them all here to die, because the last level involves you getting swallowed up by a whale that's very stationary, by the way, and traversing his stomach. Hey, if there's one thing you can't say about this game, is that it's very samey, even if the idea of some of these levels seem very ridiculous. And after beating that boss and going all the way back to the present to the retirement home, Barnacle Boy is not pleased by us being alive.
Look what I have got for you!
Look, kid, you're beginning to bug me now. One of my favorite kelp bars would be great. Hey, kid, you can only get them in Bikini Bottom.
Okay, fine. But hey, idiot, that kelp bar isn't in Bikini Bottom. It's in Rock Bottom. Now, was this a development mistake or a way to trick SpongeBob into not finding what he really wanted him to find? That's up to you to decide or what you want to believe, but it definitely is a development mistake that could have worked around to fit the narrative of the game. Now, I remember Rock Bottom being all dark and creepy like 30 Days of Nights for Bikini Bottom, but here, they mostly carried the creepy tone alone. I mean, you start out progressing down into Rock Bottom without the bus, which is already pretty crazy, but then when you get there, they treat it like the underworld. I mean, what is this level? The river Styx of Rock Bottom? With having to platform through a dark river and wooden boats, and it all leads to a freaking graveyard. Didn't Bikini Bottom also have a graveyard? How did this even appear here? Okay, maybe they had a separate graveyard, whatever. The point I'm trying to make is we only saw the city of Rock Bottom, and yeah, it was very dark, but it wasn't the freaking underworld. I mean, again, level variety here is strong, so even if it doesn't match the show, I really do appreciate it. I can't stress it enough. But would it have hurt to make something that's a little bit more accurate to the show? Because the only level that feels kind of similar to what Rock Bottom is, besides that first level you were sent to, is the last level you go through, but that's still not in the city. It's in some cavern, and even then, the city doesn't appear until after you beat that level in a cutscene, despite it being called the last stop. Well, it is the last stop before we had to talk about these bosses. Alright, it's boss time. So, King Jellyfish and the Flying Dutchman are from the show, and the Flying Dutchman appears at the end of Rock Bottom, by the way, which I don't know how that makes any sense. But these other two guys are just randoms. I mean, the Subshark from World 2 is said to have been made by Plankton, but why not just fight Plankton himself? Maybe you could have fought him to use the time machine you were going to use. And these guys also had the same sort of problem as King Jellyfish said. These guys just have some weird patterns or some poor telegraphs. They aren't really hard, just kind of annoying to fight. And the Flying Dutchman himself just teleports and reappears over and over again, but you having to hit him before he hits you and run away. Yeah, it's one of those bosses. I also love how SpongeBob has no reaction to fighting him whatsoever. Like, there's no intro cutscene, no nothing, no fear or anything. He just fights him. Now, there's a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy manual in the game that says things about these guys, but there's nothing from SpongeBob, not even a voice clip of him being afraid or fearful of who he's fighting against. I guess he really did become a super sponge in order to take on this journey. Now, once beating the Dutchman, you go back to the retirement home one last time, and now I'm trying to kill you by sending you to all these stupid locations throughout the game. The super geezers finally need your help for real.
Thanks, kid. Look, kid, Eminem has had a turn. The TV is broken, and unless you get the right tools, he's gonna miss his favorite cartoon.
A broken TV? Yeah, that's what you fools get. Man, you look at my boy SpongeBob, it's so nice, because if I was there, I would have thrown that TV out the window. Yeah, I would have fixed it for you, alright. To fix a TV, you need to go to the industrial zone, an industrialized area of, well, Jellyfish Fields and some of Bikini Bottom. Now look, you already ripped off the spatulas with Sonic, but this is getting kinda ridiculous, isn't it? A final industrial zone that shows the land being turned into factories? I mean, I don't have a problem with you taking ideas, but that wasn't the whole point of the first Sonic game. Kind of just took it without any of the other elements. But whatever. This is what the first level is. It's a more ruined Jellyfish Fields with this more melancholy music, and man, I gotta talk about this soundtrack for a second. They went pretty hard on this soundtrack, more than they should have, and it sounds like the music would just fit the show. Just a bit more energetic for a video game. It can be very funky and chill, and some of my favorites include Sandy's Tree Dome and the Carnivorous Caverns. Honestly, it's a big part of the gameplay because, for the most part, when you aren't dealing with the terrible power-ups you get or some dumb enemies, like these stupid squids that just fly all over the place, the game can be pretty chill because of the relatively easy difficulty, and that includes the final area here. Now, there are a bit of dumb design choices with some of the enemies and obstacles, like the Thwomp ripoffs here, that rely on you being very, very close to them and have a hitbox if you just touch them, and of course the aforementioned squids that just fly over the place and are very hard to hit. And you're gonna learn the reason why you really don't want to be hit by stuff is because there are these bonus levels in the game, and these bonus levels are only accessible when you have a certain amount of spatulas in one level. So for instance, the first world requires you to have at least 60 spatulas in one level. If you lose a spatula, depending on the world you're in, you may have to restart the level because remember, there's only 100 spatulas in each level, and by the time you get to world 5, they want you to get all 100 in one of the levels. That means not getting hit, not letting them fall to the ground or fall off the stage, and getting all of them, including the hidden ones in the stage, because there are some hidden ones. And what do you get when you unlock the bonus level? Well, you go to the Dream Amusement Park, which is called what it is, Glove World, and you're able to do a mini game that allows you to get coins that you can go and use to buy presents for Patrick's birthday. Now, all this really does is add a little bit of extra graphics to the end cutscene of the game, but it isn't really required to do this. And honestly, in your first playthrough, I would not waste time trying to manage getting all the spatulas you need in each level, because not only are these levels not worth it to begin with, but it makes the game a much more frustrating experience. And that is a point down from the game, because 100% of the game should be a bit fun. But in this game's case, I feel like some of the mechanics revolving around the spatula system are pretty stupid. Because when you begin to focus on getting those, all the little issues and nitpicks you have with each of the items or level designs or enemies start to become major problems, because now you're trying to conserve all these spatulas while dealing with that stuff. Stuff I could just easily breeze through in a regular level that may have been slightly annoying become a major obstacle. And that just ruins the game in a lot of cases. So I would avoid trying to get them on the first playthrough. Now back to the industrial Bikini Bottom. Outside of the industrial jellyfish fields, you'll be traversing inside of a factory, testing most of your abilities and items you used so far, with all of the gimmicks of a factory, except for one level. And like, speaking of stupid design, why is Man Ray here as a common enemy? He's in the opening of the game and even has a stage named after him. But there he is as just a regular enemy and not a boss. You'd think he'd be the final boss, considering the game revolves around you running errands for Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. But no, he is just here as an enemy with no dialogue whatsoever. Now, the reason for this could be the fact that the actual Man Ray episode, you know, the one where SpongeBob and Patrick actually encounter Man Ray, and Man Ray has a voice and he starts doing stuff, actually happened a week before this game came out. It aired a week before this game came out. And I don't know how much material Nick gave these guys before making the game. Considering that it started in 2000, it probably would have been too late to implement Man Ray in a unique way, because again, he wasn't fully shown off until this episode, and so I guess they made him a regular enemy. But in hindsight, it just feels backwards, because the final boss is another random enemy, being this big bad iron dogfish. And it's like, look at this guy. Shouldn't he be the regular enemy and not Man Ray? And he's like one of the easiest bosses in the game too. All you have to do is hit him with this steam and then jump on him. That's it. That's all you have to do to take him down. They make this big deal out of it, him being like a land creature that should be in the land, but it's in the sea. But like, bro, you're just a regular enemy. I should be fighting Man Ray. But whatever, that's the end of the game. And yeah, SpongeBob was able to fix the TV, and finally these old fools give him an autograph for Patrick.
Congratulations, Spongy Blob. You earned this. Patrick is lucky to have a friend like you.
Gee, thanks.
Well, I've learned today that friendship is something that is priceless. SB is not such a bad sponge after all.
SpongeBob SquarePants! Wait till I get my hand on that porous freak!
That's what you get. The funny thing is though, they appear at the party at the end of the game still, so either they're waiting to beat SpongeBob's butt or got so bored without a TV they just showed up to kill time. Even with everyone here, Patrick's party looks a bit empty, doesn't it? Well, that's where those presents I mentioned earlier would come into play, but I didn't really get all of them. Again, to me, 100% completion just sucks all of the fun out of this journey, especially in the second and third worlds of the game, which is a good thing that it's very optional and really doesn't do much besides give you those little bonus levels, which I'm gonna be real with you, aren't really that much to fret over anyway, to work going through all the hassle to get them unlocked. But yeah, that's Super Sponge. But before I get my final thoughts, I want to cover the Game Boy Advance version. Though Super Sponge was one of the last games on the PS1, it was one of the first games on the Game Boy Advance, and many write the game off as being very similar to the console version, which could be a good thing, but I think they're a bit wrong. It definitely has a similar structure, but there are different levels and different level designs and different controls altogether. For instance, the Karate Chop is a move SpongeBob has by default now, allowing him to hit while moving forward, which is something we really needed in his base moveset in the console game. Spatulas also aren't health anymore. Instead, we have a standard health system that can be refilled by eating food. The trade-off to this is that getting spatulas pretty much gives you nothing now. It's kind of akin to the score system in an arcade game. There are some new obstacles too, like the sea mines. Another thing that was changed from the console version was some of the level themes. So remember how I praised the game for trying to make every level feel unique? Well, this game reuses backgrounds and themes for a few levels, which sucks. I don't think they should have took away something like that, but at the same time, I understand that this is one of the early Game Boy Advance games, and with how development was early on in that system's life cycle, there's only so much they could add. But in a good trade-off, almost every level after the first world is completely different from the console version. Remember how I compared Rock Bottom to the Underworld? Well, in this version, it's more akin to Atlantis. At least one of the levels is, with that River Styx-like level being gone. Prehistoric Bikini Bottom is completely different, and so is the last level of the game. Instead of going deeper into a factory, SpongeBob all of a sudden is above water on a ship with his helmet on. How did we get here, and why is the last part to the TV here? But I guess it makes more sense for the Sea Dog to be here though, since in the console version it only hints that they question how a thing could survive like this in the sea. But now instead of stalking him, you just hit him whenever you want to. In fact, all the bosses are much easier than their console counterpart. In fact, the whole game is. I kind of breezed through this in one sitting. I mean, there even seems to be a glitch where if you fall on spikes with SpongeBob, you only be damaged once and you can keep bouncing on them until you reach the next platform without taking any damage. It's just too easy. Even the characters explain the weapon before a level starts very slowly. I think the only exception to the rule is the first level of Rock Bottom. Once again, these stupid squids are the bane of my existence, somehow knocking you off the platforms to your death, along with some areas making you take giant leaps of faith to progress. This was the only hurdle, and it was all due to stupid design decisions. I'm not going to complain about the difficulty too much though, because considering who this game was made for, you gotta remember that the original Game Boy Advance did not have a backlit screen, so it only made sense to make some accommodation for a kid's game so they can get through it. As for it being better than its console counterpart, I feel like it's only in certain areas, like the health bar and the karate chop. The console version just has the better levels, and of course voice acting, and more variety in its stages. Still, if I was a kid playing this back then, I think I would enjoy it, alongside playing something else. I feel like nowadays SuperSponge's Impact is in a very weird place. It was only if you really grew up with the series back then, and I mean during season 1's time or that early 2000 Nicktoons time, that you would actually care about it. You see, because of the late release on the PlayStation 1, I feel most fans outside of the small in-between born between 97 and 2001 probably wouldn't care about this game. And to be honest, it's not like it's some hidden gem or anything. It was just a late release licensed kid game, and the quality was nothing to set it apart from the rest of the scraps on the PlayStation at that time. Okay, well, it was better than most of those types of games in the end. You see, unlike a lot of those games, this is actually fun, at least fun for a child. When I got my PlayStation 1 as a kid, I got two games with it, Spyro 2 and this game, Spongebob Supersponge, and I thoroughly enjoyed both. Yeah, Spyro 2 was the better game, there's no debating that, but I was loving SuperSponge. And keep in mind, I did not have a memory card. When I played both of these games, I had to keep repeating the playthroughs over and over again. I was still having a blast. And when I played this game for this video, I had that nostalgic rush that people always claim to feel with retro games, except for real. Like, I imagine myself back then while playing in my old room, and even now, despite the issues, I still find enjoyment in this game, and the soundtrack as well. It was a fun experience, and maybe they could have combined some of the different versions, mechanics, and maybe add a world or two and fix the spatula count thing, but for what it was, it's fine. Also, this game makes it so that SpongeBob and LeBron James have something in common. They both had a game, or appeared in the game, on every PlayStation system that was made due to a technicality of them being around and relevant in the early 2000s. Hyper specific, I know, but hey, it's still an accomplishment, and they're still appearing in new games today. So there's one thing you can remember it for, or like it for, it is making SpongeBob a cross-generational series that appeared on every single PlayStation console. But I guess it doesn't beat The Simpsons that technically appeared on nearly every console. Almost every console, I think. Whatever. Look, SuperSponge may not be nothing special, but I think it was a decent start to the SpongeBob game's legacy. And as we get further, okay, maybe there is a bit of a hiccup or two, but as we get further, the games start to slightly get better. But we'll talk about that in another video. For now, thanks for watching. This is the J-Blast Network, signing out. And don't forget, stay off the drugs, stay in school, don't be a fool, and you better believe, baby, yeah.